Hello guys, and welcome back to Yeagerists. In today's video, we will be going through the story of Light Yagami, the god of the New World. In the year 2003, Light Yagami discovers a mysterious notebook on the ground at his school. Written on the cover are the words Death Note. The Death Note's instructions state that if a person doesn't smash the like button on this video, that person shall die. Light is initially skeptical of the notebook's authenticity, but after experimenting with it, Light realizes that the Death Note is real. After putting much thought into whether or not he should continue using the notebook, he ascertains that no one else will be able to bear the burden of improving the world. Light then meets the previous owner of the Death Note, a Shinigami named Ryuk. He explains his reasons for dropping the Death Note in the human world, and when it's Light's time to die, he will be the one to write Light's name in his notebook. Light then tells him of his goal of getting rid of all evil people in the world and ruling over it as God. Light's killings reach a monumental scale, attracting the attention of a master detective known as 𝐿. The first conflict between Light and 𝐿 happens over the television, beginning with the broadcast of Lind L. Taylor. 𝐿 places Taylor as a decoy on television in order to trick Light, with the network stating that the broadcast is worldwide. Taylor provokes Kira by calling him evil and, in a rage, kills Taylor with a heart attack. Light thinks the ordeal is over, but the broadcast of Taylor is suddenly cut, and 𝐿's signature, letter L, appears. The real 𝐿 announces that Lind L. Taylor was a decoy and a criminal on death row. He explains that Taylor's information was never made available to the public, so there was no way Kira could have killed him until now. 𝐿 boldly taunts Kira, asking him to try and kill him, as Light stares at the TV, angrily shocked that he's been fooled.
We've been tricked! We've been backstabbed!
After several seconds, 𝐿 learns that Kira needs the person's real name and face to kill the victim. Otherwise, Kira would have already killed him. 𝐿 announces that the video was aired only in the Kanto area of Japan, as a ploy to determine the location of Kira. 𝐿 says that he is now speaking directly to Kira, and tells Kira that he will catch him. Then the broadcast ends. As Light ponders over this, he accepts 𝐿's challenge to him. He also declares that he will find 𝐿, and he will eliminate him. The two announce their intentions, and both declare that they are justice. Soon after, now working with the Japanese police, 𝐿 begins to lead a task force, alongside Light's own father, Soichiro, in order to expose and capture Kira. Light hacks into his father's computer without leaving a trace, and discovers that 𝐿 and the task force speculate that Kira may well be a student. Light figures that considering no one would be able to control the conditions of death using the Death Note, manipulating the time of death is possible as well. Light then begins killing criminals in 1-hour increments, in order to specifically contradict the Kira is a student theory, letting 𝐿 know that Kira has access to police information, with Light's main goal in mind being the spawning of distrust among the police and 𝐿, as 𝐿 will be bound to investigate the police now. When walking home from school, Light is informed by Ryuk that someone is tailing him. In order to prevent him from being investigated, Light is determined to kill his stalker. Ryuk tells Light the purpose of the Death Note. A Shinigami gets extra life from killing humans with a Death Note, which is why a Shinigami can live for many years and cannot be killed in any other way. Then, Ryuk explains to Light that the Shinigami have eyes that allow them to see any human's real name and lifespan over their head. In addition, a Shinigami can make a deal with the owner of the Death Note to receive the Shinigami eyes, in exchange for half of the human's remaining lifespan. With Ryuk offering to make the deal, Light refuses the deal, stating that he needs to live for a long time in order to rule over his utopian world. Light boards a bus with his date, Yuri, and Light's follower takes a seat behind the couple. Prior to the date, Light had written the name of Kichiro Osorda, having him hijack the bus, then leave the bus and die of an accident after seeing a phantom. Osorda boards the bus. The man pulls out a gun and points it to the driver, taking the bus hostage. Light prompts his follower to say something by passing Yuri a note which contains Light's plans to apprehend the busjacker. Light asks Rei to show him proof that he is not the busjacker's accomplice, forcing him to show his proof of being an FBI agent, along with his name, Ray Penber. Light drops a note, which prompts the busjacker to pick it up, only for the note to have been a snippet of the Death Note, meaning the busjacker can see Ryuk. In shock, The busjacker empties his gun and exits the bus, before dying in an accident. Back at Light's house, Ryuk asks him if he's going to write down Penber's name in the death note. Light tells him that it would look too suspicious if he does so immediately after they met. In addition, he wants Penber to show him the names and faces of every FBI agent sent to investigate the NPA. On December 27, 2003, Light goes into an underground section of the Shinjuku station. Light figured out that he can write the date and cause of death in the death note without a name, and the death note will work when the name is added later. While wearing a hood to obscure his identity, Light appears behind Penber, unaware that it is Light, and tells Penber that he is Kira. Light threatens Penber by stating that non-compliance would lead to his death. Light asks Penber if he's carrying a laptop, and if he has a file containing the names of all FBI agents in Japan. Penber says that he doesn't have a file like that, and Light hands him an envelope. He tells Penber to hold on to the envelope, take out the transmitter, and put the headphones in. Over transmitter, Light leads Penber through a turnstile in the western entrance at 3:11 p.m. Penber enters a train on the Yamanote line at 3:13 and takes a seat. Light asks how many FBI agents there are, and Penber says that he thinks there are 4 groups, totaling 12 agents. Light says to call an agent that is ranked lower than him and ask for the names and faces of all agents sent to Japan. Penber receives the file at 3:21 p.m., and Penber is the second FBI agent that receives it. Light tells Penber to take out the contents of the folder he gave him, and Penber takes out 4 envelopes with 10 rectangular spaces cut out of the left side of each one. Light says to write down the names of the agents into the blocks on the folders. At 4:42 p.m., when Ray exits the train, he dies of a heart attack while turning around seeing Light. Light takes the files home and takes the pages of the death note out of their envelope, revealing the times and causes of death for each agent. Each agent will receive the file and die at a different time. After the sudden death of Ray, Naomi Misora decides to take part in the Kira case herself, having been told by Ray that he showed his FBI badge to someone during a bus jacking. Naomi deduces that Kira must have been on the bus. In her attempts to contact the Japanese task force, she comes across Light Yagami. Light uses his father's status to his advantage, telling Naomi that he is Chief Yagami's son, which allows him to slowly win her trust. Cautious at first, she uses the false name, Shokomaki, in order to protect herself until she can reach L. After he realizes that this was an alias from the way Ryuk laughed, Light finally gets Naomi to reveal her name by saying that he is a member of the task force and is actually working with L. Taking advantage of Naomi's emotional state, Light gives the possibility that she could join the task force and help catch her fiance's murderer. Light says that he will need to see a form of identification before she can join, and Naomi shows him her driver's license. Using a piece of the death note, Light writes down Naomi's name, resulting in her death by suicide. As Light arrives home, he finds the doorknob of his bedroom is strangely at the very top. Plus, the pencil lead placed on his door hinge is broken. Not only that, but his bluff, a piece of paper, was strangely put back in his door. This has Light believing that L installed surveillance cameras and wiretaps within his room. Light then bribes Ryuk with apples, asking him where the surveillance cameras are. Light reveals he has hidden scandalous magazines and proceeds to browse through them in order to give off the impression to L that he is a normal teenager and that the magazines were what he was hiding all along. During dinner, L has a message appear on TV stating that the ICPO has dispatched 1,500 investigators to Japan to investigate Kira. But Light sees through his bluff. When Light is about to study for his upcoming entrance exams, he has placed a snippet of the notebook on a mini LCD TV within a potato chip bag. While studying, whenever Light places his hand into the potato chip, he actually checks for criminals' names using the mini TV, then writes down their names. The main idea is that L would see that criminals have died, which Light could not possibly see, being busy in his room studying. With this trick, Light manages to kill 2 petty criminals. For the next few days, Light proceeds to kill more criminals, petty or not, in order to cover up the fact that petty criminals have died solely while he was studying. Eventually, the surveillance cameras get removed, and Light plans on finding L through his father. Light performs his entrance exams when he notices a student sitting strangely on his seat. He passes the exams, scoring perfectly, and is able to become a student of 𝐂𝐢 University. Alongside another student who scored perfectly, who was the student sitting oddly earlier, he gives a speech. noticing the strange behavior of this student who named himself after the famous pop idol, Hideki Ryuga. Light feels annoyed at his constant chattering that concerns Light's character. Hideki Ryuga then reveals himself to Light as L. Light is shocked by this and is attempting to stay calm around this supposed new friend he's made. When Light arrives home, he throws a tantrum and explains L's strategy, that should Light write down L's name using the alias, even with the off chance that it's real, the real Hideki Ryuga will die, since Light will have subconsciously pictured Ryuga's face, and suspicion will be pointed towards him. Not only that, but even if Light finds out L's real name, this L could very well be a proxy, and suspicion from the hypothetical real L will be pointed towards Light again. Light accepts this challenge from L, getting excited over this upcoming battle of wits. L asks Light to play tennis with him, and they do so, nearly evenly matched. During the tennis game, both of them ponder strategies. Light comes to the conclusion that L asked him to play tennis in order to lay the groundwork for future meetings, which will essentially be tests. Light also plans on confirming that Ryuga is L, with confirmation from the task force. After Light wins the intense tennis match, L reveals that he is suspicious of Light being Kira, with Light still being forced to put up the act and pretends to be shocked. Light comes to the conclusion that, with his act, L is attempting to prevent Light from meeting with the task force. They hang out together at a cafe afterward. At the cafe, L tests Light multiple times, with Light managing to evade L's psychological traps. L asks Light to help the Kira investigation. If Light is Kira, then L will be closer to him, and there is more room for Light slipping up, and if he isn't Kira, then his great intellectual ability will be of use to the investigation. Light takes advantage of this by demanding that he meet the task force members to confirm L's identity in order for him to begin helping the investigation. Much to Light's surprise, L accepts. 𝐂𝐢𝐻𝐻 collapses due to stress, and both Light and L visit him at the hospital. There, through 𝐂𝐢𝐻𝐻, Light manages to confirm that L, who appeared before him, is in fact the real L. On April 22, 2004, in a broadcast on Sakura TV, Kira sends tapes stating that if criminal reports stop, Kira will kill police officers and reporters, and then demands that the life of someone in charge of the Kira investigation be handed over, the directors or Ls. Kira says to choose and reveal them in 4 days, and that, because Kira knows the director's face, there are no special requirements. However, if they should choose L, he must appear on Sakura TV and give a 10-minute speech. A few days later, L asks Light to join the task force. Light arrives at the hotel and appears surprised at the small size of the task force, and L tells Light that there are a few outsiders who know what happens within the investigation, and only one can contact L directly. Light is told to look over the papers of the investigation, then watch the tape without taking notes or removing anything. After watching the tapes, Light says that there may be someone else with Kira's abilities, citing the difference in criminals killed, as well as the fact that some were killed immediately after revealing their faces. Light realizes that L would have told him his plan regardless of what he told L, and that he set things up so that if Light didn't say there was another Kira, he would look suspicious. And if he did, he would help strengthen L's theory to the task force. L asks Light to help their case by pretending to be Kira and tells Light that only he is able to play this role, starting with writing a draft for the speech as Kira. Later, the tape is created and sent to various TV stations. The second Kira responds with videos, which contain indirect and some rather direct comments about death notes, Shinigami, and how they can meet. Light goes to Aoyama to find the second Kira, but is unable to meet this Kira. However, due to having Shinigami eyes, the second Kira is able to identify Light as Kira because of her being unable to see Light's lifespan. After finding out his address, the second Kira arrives at Light's house, and Light invites Misa into his room and asks her to explain her actions. Misa says that she wanted to meet Kira because her parents were murdered in front of her, and Kira killed the man who did it. Misa asks to be his girlfriend, admitting that she wouldn't even mind if he simply uses her. Light agrees, intending to kill her after she outlives her usefulness. However, Misa's Shinigami, Rem, promises to kill him if he ever harms Misa. Light finds Rem to be a massive threat, as having limited control over Misa would result in her doing something reckless. Not to mention, Misa's capture could result in Rem killing Light. Light now has to keep a gaggle of girlfriends so that his newfound relationship with Misa won't stand out, as L had already deducted that Kira and the second Kira have allied. Misa goes directly against Light's orders, and instead of meeting 2 weeks after their first meeting as Light requested, Misa meets up with Light only 2 days following their first meeting. Light uses this opportunity to convince Rem to help him kill L, promising her that it's for Misa's happiness. Rem agrees to do so, and Light said that she must follow his command only when he tells her to. At campus, Light surprisingly meets up with L again, where L steals Misa's phone after taking advantage of a crowd. Misa is then taken away, with L revealing that he found DNA evidence in Misa's room, pointing toward Misa being the second Kira. Light, now concerned by L, puts his master plan into action. Rem had already relinquished ownership of Misa's notebook to Light, wiping her memories and preventing her from confessing. Light then swaps the notebooks with their respective Shinigami, with Ryuk being attached to the notebook originally owned by Misa, and Rem attached to Light's. Light places 2 fake rules in the notebook Rem is attached to. One being that when the notebook is destroyed, anyone who has touched the notebook will die, and, most importantly, whoever doesn't write names within the notebook within 13 consecutive days dies. Light instructs Rem to allow Kyosuke Higuchi to become the new owner of the Death Note she is attached to, then asks L to detain him. During his confinement, no criminals die, which strengthens the case for Light being Kira. Within 7 days of confinement, Light gives up his ownership of his notebook and consequently has all of his memories of being Kira wiped and altered. During his 15th day of confinement, criminals begin dropping dead again, and on his 50th day, the task force has L release Light and Misa. Soichiro fakes an execution by shooting Light and Misa with a blank gun, which convinces L to release Light and Misa from their confinement. Light accepts L's offer to join the investigation team to hunt down Higuchi. L handcuffs him and Light together, displeasing Misa and Light. L suggests manipulating Misa in order to get information from her, but Light refuses. While Misa is resting in her hotel room, L acts lethargic about how catching Kira will be difficult, prompting Light to fight him. Months later, L is sulking and not working on the case. Light finds a correlation between the killings and the growth of Yotsuba, having the investigation believe that Kira is either within Yotsuba or working behind Yotsuba, and also leads them to the conclusion that Kira can kill through means other than heart attacks. Keeping watch of the meetings held by the head of the Yotsuba members, Light objects to L letting the killings continue, and poses as L and decides to call Riji Namikawa, who agrees to help L and postpone the killings. Misa eventually finds evidence pointing towards Kyosuke Higuchi being Kira. While L and the investigation team enacts the plan to take down Higuchi, Light keeps watch of the situation and follows L, eventually to the point where he is riding on a helicopter with L and witnesses Higuchi's arrest. While the task force discovers the Death Note, Light touches it, regaining his memories as Kira once again. In order to claim ownership of the Death Note he is currently holding, Light kills Higuchi using a snippet of the notebook within his watch. L and the task force then find the 13-day rule, successfully clearing Light and Misa of being suspected. While L is still skeptical, Light instructs Misa to find her buried Death Note, which results in her regaining her memories. Light instructs Misa to kill L if she remembers his real name from when they were on campus. But Misa doesn't remember, and so makes the Shinigami ideal again, which is what Light wanted in case Misa forgot L's name, as taking the ideal and having her lifespan would pressure Rem. Light then instructs Misa to begin killing criminals, so that L would suspect Misa is behind the killings. This is in order to put Rem into a situation where she'd be forced to kill L in order to save Misa. Rem does indeed kill L and Watari, which results in her death, just as Light planned. After winning the battle with L and taking his persona, Light gains control of the Kira investigation team. This puts him on the safest ground as his role as a second-generation L, covering his identity as Kira. For the next 5 years, by using L's database of criminal records, Light's judgments become more widespread than ever. As a result, the world falls into a dark age, which essentially everyone now lives under the law of Kira. After 5 years of everything going swimmingly, Takemura, the head of the NPA, gets kidnapped in exchange for the Death Note. At the same time, an FBI agent, John McEnroe, confronts Soichiro and asks for the Death Note. This FBI agent also seeks cooperation from the task force to rescue Takemura from the kidnappers. Light feels obligated to get rid of the kidnappers, as well as the American organization, as soon as possible. Light kills Takemura so that they no longer have a bargaining chip to trade the Death Note for, and it wouldn't look suspicious, as anyone could easily assume the kidnappers killed him. However, The kidnappers then announce that they have kidnapped 𝐢𝐢 Yagami, which puts Light under pressure. In order to get help, he contacts the organization which John, Mick, and Ro offered to have them talk to, and Light talks to 𝐕 for the first time, who introduces himself as N and is aware of the previous L's death. Light tells 𝐕 the current situation, and 𝐕 surveys the site of the trade using satellites. The exchange goes through, with the kidnappers gaining the notebook. 𝐕 decides that he should chase the kidnappers on his own, only for his plan to fail as �MeLo uses the Death Note to wipe out more than half his team. Light takes advantage of this incident to trade all he knows about the notebook for information on the perpetrator of the kidnappings. 𝐕 tells Light that someone is using the nickname �MeLo, who's using the Mafia, is behind the kidnappings. Light learns the location of �MeLo and the Mafia by taking control of the current Death Note owner and having him mail him their location. Light then has Misa send a message to the task force as Kira, that Kira relinquished ownership of his Death Note to one of the members of the task force in order to attack the Mafia and regain the notebook. Light had expected Matsuda to gain ownership and make the Shinigami ideal, but unfortunately for Light, Soichiro does so instead. The raid commences, and they regain the Death Note, and Light tells them to confront �MeLo. Soichiro threatens �MeLo rather than killing him, giving Jose the opportunity to shoot Soichiro severely. �MeLo then blows up the base and escapes, but Soichiro manages to give �MeLo's real name to Light. Soichiro then dies in the hospital, after seeing that Light's lifespan was not absent, proving to him that Light was not Kira. Light selects Demigawa as the Kira spokesperson, intending to spread Kira's word in order to gain more power and take down 𝐕 and �MeLo. Thanks in part to David Hoop's death and the battle with the Mafia, the United States submits to Kira and dissolves the SPK, the organization 𝐕 is running. 𝐕, deducing that the second L is Kira, calls Light and claims that he has interrogated �MeLo and learns that there are fake rules. 𝐕 disproves the 13-day rule and gives pieces of evidence to the task force, pointing towards the second L being Kira, instilling some doubt within the task force in an effort to turn them against the second L. �MeLo contacts Mogi and tells him to follow �MeLo to New York, which Mogi does so under the supervision of Light and the task force. However, �MeLo has Mogi go to the SPK's headquarters, which puts Light under extreme pressure as �MeLo and 𝐕 are constantly pressuring Mogi into spilling information. Luckily for Light, Mogi doesn't give away any information. However, as he can't guarantee that, and in order to kill off 𝐕 and Mogi, Light sends Demigawa and tons of other Kira followers to attack 𝐕. However, 𝐕 uses L's inheritance to distract the crowd and escape. 𝐕 lies to the task force, claiming Mogi had died of a heart attack. This stirs suspicion against Light, which results in Aizawa giving 𝐕 lots of information, which has him believing that Light Yagami is the second L and Kira, while Mogi returns to the task force. Light now expects tighter surveillance, now that 𝐕 turned the task force against him, so he has Misa relinquish ownership of her notebook to Tiro Mikami, who kills Demigawa for running amok, testifying his worth. Mikami then selects Kiyomi Takada as the new Kira spokesperson, who coincidentally had a past relationship with Light. Light takes advantage of this to use Takada to talk to Mikami, and does this while satisfying the task force, under the guise that he is investigating her. During their second meeting, Mikami calls them, and Light manages to confirm to Mikami that Light is Kira, and Mikami confirmed to Light that Mikami is the new Kira proxy via subtle communication. Light then says that all the task force's surveillance cameras and most of the wiretaps must be removed, as per Kira's request. Light then privately reveals to Takada that he is Kira. The task force moves to Japan, with the same being done by the SPK. For the rest of his meetings with Takada, Light and her communicate by writing notes as the task force placed a wire on Light. Light instructs Takada to tell Mikami to forge a fake notebook and use that fake notebook to write down names in public, while he sends Takada the real names so she does the killings. 𝐕 calls Light and informs him of their ongoing investigation of Takada. Light also has Mikami say things in public, suggesting Ryuk hasn't been following him. This way, when 𝐕 touches the Death Note, he won't think that there is no Shinigami because the notebook is fake. Light's plan goes perfectly, with 𝐕 having swapped the pages of Mikami's fake notebook. 𝐕 calls the task force and informs them of a meeting 𝐕 wants to arrange, taking place at Yellow Box Warehouse, which is just what Light had expected. However, not too many days before the planned meeting, Takada suddenly gets kidnapped by �MeLo. Takada successfully manages to kill �MeLo, while Light kills Takada using a fire to remove any evidence. The meeting commences, and Mikami begins writing down everyone's name within the notebook, with the only one whose name isn't written down is confirmed to be Kira. Having prepared a fake all along, Light had expected to win, as he had planned things out so that Mikami would bring the real one. However, it is revealed to be a fake. NieR reveals that Mikami had actually written down Takada's name after her kidnapping, not knowing Light did the same. This allowed NieR to seize the real notebook, which Mikami had used to write down her name. Light, being exposed as Kira, attempts to deny it. But with his declaration of victory, as well as the evidence NieR provided, everyone is convinced Light is Kira. Light laughs maniacally and attempts to tell them the benefits of Kira's world. However, NieR responds by saying that everyone has a right to choose what they think is right or wrong, while Kira is killing people to selfishly force his own personal utopia onto everyone. When Light then tries to appeal to everyone else in the room, their cold gaze confirms that they too harshly reject his vision of a utopia. Light then decides to distract everyone in the room by presenting the possibility that the notebook brought from the task force could be fake. While mid-speech, he swiftly tries to use the scrap of his note in his watch to kill NieR. Matsuda responds by shooting Light, interrupting him, then berates him for driving his own father to his death for his vision. Light then tries to finish writing down the name using blood from the gunshot wound. Matsuda, enraged at Light, shoots at Light multiple times, leaving him severely injured. The task force then disarms Matsuda before he kills Light in his fit of rage. Mikami commits suicide by stabbing himself with his pen and losing a lot of blood, creating a diversion for both the task force and the SPK. Although weakened, Light catches a second wind and manages to flee the warehouse. NieR tells Aizawa, Mogi, Airi, and Matsuda that there is no reason to pursue Light, given that there should be no more hidden Death Note pieces, and Light's wounds would prevent him from getting far. Aizawa refuses to heed NieR's orders and has his team follow Light. Meanwhile, Ryuk writes Light's name down when he finds another warehouse to hide in. As Light silently dies, an illusion of L appears before Light, mirroring a scene following L's defeat at Light's hands in episode 25. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to us. We will see you guys very soon in one of our next videos.